Welcome back to the 10 Adventures podcast. Today we're talking about how you can use adventure to have a meaningful impact on your family and loved ones. Here to talk about her new book, Into the Wild, Family Micro Adventures, is Claire Pinder. Hi Claire, welcome to the podcast.
Hi Richard, nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm excited. We've been having such great chats recently about just how adventure changes people's lives. And I think this is a great talk about how you can use adventure to connect with loved ones. But before we get into that, I'm really interested about how you got into writing a book about this. You've written Into the Wild, Family Micro Adventures, but your career is in startups and international companies. How did you pivot to write this book?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I think my career, like many people, is something that really just seemed to unravel. I sort of finished my studies in education and headed off for a long stint traveling, and then returned to the UK, where I kicked off my career in these sort of fast-paced, large and small tech companies. And I really fell into kind of what I call those social norms of working hard, buying a house, having kids, and so on. And I felt like I was thriving for quite a while, actually. I had this career where I was able to kind of continually learn and build new connections, which I loved. And then my 40s approached, and I found that this continuous nag was in my head, like some sort of disconnect with life. And my career was starting to feel a bit more like a financial necessity than lacked that kind of sense of purpose, I guess. I was feeling like I wasn't really living life as my true, authentic self. My last role in this kind of tech industry was in London, and it came to a fairly abrupt end, actually, when I felt really that limited connection with the company and what they were doing, their commercial goals and values. And it was a point where I felt in some ways lost, but that moment, in fact, was kind of like a huge opportunity, something that I hadn't foreseen. And it really gave me something I hadn't had for a long time. And that was having time to myself to really think and reflect. And I'm someone that doesn't really sit still for very long. So I poured my energy into drilling down into why I was feeling so detached from my life and my career. And I soon came to realize I'd really lost that alignment with my own personal values and interests, and what would need to find a way to kind of really reconnect with my passions and the things that give me energy in life. And so if I take you back for a moment to my childhood, the days before iPads and gaming devices, mobile phones, I spent most of my time actually in the outdoors with friends, exploring, live in an area with lots of woodland, so seeking out adventures in the woodland. And my parents, they really instilled that kind of curiosity and passion for the outdoors from a very young age. We used to go on kind of family hiking trips in Wales and camping holidays, always exploring somewhere new. We weren't really the family to holiday in the same location every year and sit around the pool sunbathing. So I knew I had to use this time to really kindle my energy and not get distracted by like those financial pressures. So I started by heading back to the Welsh Mountains. I went on an outdoor survival program for a weekend, kind of to test the theory. And interestingly, what I've really found was my sense of purpose, I guess, through new experiences, connecting with others, and just having fun in the outdoors. So I think when I returned home from that trip, I really reflected on how much I value the passion I have for adventure and exploring the natural world, and that sense of purpose it gives me. But I think more importantly, the role I play in ensuring that I instill that passion into my own children's lives. And so writing this book wasn't really a methodically planned out idea I'd had for years. It was really just spontaneous. And that's kind of one of my own personal guiding principles. If you get excited by something and it gives you energy, then just do it. So I did literally wake up one morning and decide I'm going to share my passion for the outdoors and help inspire others to live more adventurously. And I wanted to kind of highlight the health benefits of getting outdoors into, out of this busy world and into nature. And so that's how I landed writing this book, Richard. Long answer, but hopefully it gives the context.
It's funny. First off, I love when you said, if you get excited about something, you get energy, you do it. And I've never thought about that, but that really has been like how I feel. And I think there's lots of people that are like that, is, you're willing to take a leap, do something that maybe, you don't have knowledge in, just because it seems really interesting. But when I think back to what you talked about having a lifestyle that wasn't satisfying, I know so many people who are in a profession they don't like, doing a job they don't like, but they've built a lifestyle where they bought the biggest home they could get a mortgage for. They have flashy cars, and they've kind of committed themselves to this lifestyle. And those people are often really unhappy, I find. And it's so hard because, as you said, society kind of pushes us from university, get a job. Oh, you're talented, you get promoted, you get more money. Oh, you move closer to central London, you get a better flat. And it's so hard to take the leap. And I'm really interested, why do you think you took the leap? It's really hard to give that up, to stop doing that. Is it just something inherent in you, or is this something other people can learn from to get out of these really tough situations?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I think I'm not averse to risk. And I think there was that element of, I've got this opportunity, and that was, as I said before, that was time. And I'm going to go and really explore. I think if I look at it now, it felt like I got to the end of a rope, and I didn't actually have much choice but to explore it, because it really felt flat, right? Life was feeling flat. It did feel all driven by kind of that financial focus. And so it was that combination of being comfortable with taking risk, and I kind of need to have to do it. That's what kind of drove me, I suppose, to take that leap.
Again, I like the life was feeling flat. There's two ways you've expressed this that I've never heard those before, but they really resonate with me. Let's move on to your book. You wrote a book about family micro adventures, and I used to live in the UK. I'm really familiar with micro adventures. Al Humphreys kind of coined the term, wrote a book, and it was pervasive here in North America. I don't think I've ever heard anyone mention micro adventures. We have a big North American audience. Can you maybe share what a micro adventure is?
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned the name, the person that really inspired me, Alistair Humphreys. He's a kind of British extreme adventurer and author of multiple books on this topic. And he really kind of grounded that concept of a micro adventure. It really simply means like a mini outdoor experience that you can easily do. It's usually done in your local area, and it should be fun, and it should be affordable. And it gives those participating a real kind of sense of excitement and adventure. And that really is all that is a micro adventure, yeah.
And I'm just going to give a plug for Al Humphreys and his books. He has written some great ones. His Riding Around the World. If you're listening to this on a cold January day, go buy those books, because you won't be able to put them down. What I think is really cool about microventures is this idea is to take, this idea of I've got to go and do something epic and take weeks or months, and just distill it down to how do you bring it into your daily life. And I think that's really powerful. And you were a book focused on families. And so the next step down is, okay, microadventures are good for us as humans. Why is it good for families?
Yeah, it's a great one. I think, going on a micro adventure with your family, it's really about breaking away from routine. It's taking those little moments in time, giving everyone that freedom to go explore, be curious, find excitement in nature right on your front doorstep. And I think most importantly for me, it gives time for families to really connect and build those closer bonds together. Another thing for me that was important about this book is looking in terms of the kind of benefits for children and their developing brains in a young age. And those are really heavily influenced by experience. And if we can create a healthy attitude towards getting outdoors as parents or guardians or grandparents, we can really help to build positive foundations for a child's development. So yeah, that was really the purpose around this.
So I do a lot of micro adventures with my family. And I know it's right, but I don't know, I know a little bit, intuitively, I know, okay, this is really good for the family. but I want to dig into some of the benefits and start with the physical benefits of doing micro adventures. And, you wrote a book. What do you see as the physical benefits of doing this with your family?
Yeah, sure. I think, the physical benefits, I think, are mostly not groundbreaking realizations. Exercising our body, we know that's good for us. Getting oxygen in our lungs, of course. Simple things like vitamin D that you get from the sun, which we know can boost our mood and it can improve your overall immune system. I think the more interesting findings from research studies on the topic around when children and adults spend time in the outdoors and in nature, it really can have a positive impact on things like ability to focus and inattention and your overall concentration span. And it can also can actually help to then reduce kind of behavioral challenges and issues that children might have. There's lots of proof to show that it can improve your memory and therefore improve academic performance. So a kind of win-win all round.
I feel like there's also some mental health benefits. I know with my kids and my wife, just spending a weekend where phones don't work and there's no Nintendo Switch, we just really connect as a family. But I feel like there's more stuff that I don't realize. In your research, did you find more around the mental health? And maybe it's not even just the kids. Like I find as a parent, just having this time just brings me so much joy, let alone having this great family relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is what really shines through, in my opinion, the kind of mental health benefits. I certainly know them for myself. There's, again, huge studies on this topic that have shown that getting into nature more and having adventures with others can help to reduce anxiety and boost self-esteem and gives people kind of like a sense of purpose and almost that balance that you need in life. For me, personally, the past 5 years for myself and my boys has been fairly emotionally turbulent, and we've had to find our way through some grief and loss. And this has been something that, most people will experience in their lifetime. And I've personally really managed to find emotional stability from being outdoors, that feeling of kind of, escape and seeing the world around you and how calming that is. And literally at times it's helped me just to be able to breathe. So yeah, I really truly believe in the kind of mental health benefits, if nothing else, from these experiences.
It's interesting you mentioned calming, and that is, just thinking, as you're talking, I'm thinking of going to do something and actually just was feeling like, oh, I'm feeling super, super relaxed now. And even talking with kids, I find when you're out backpacking, you're together for 72 hours, you end up talking about things that you'd never talk about with your kids at home because you have these structured, let's talk at the dinner table, let's go for a walk for an hour around the community. Whereas when you're walking for 8 or 9 hours, eventually, after you talk enough about Pokemon and ninja swords and everything like that, you get these really incredible insights where at least my children, they open up. And I think a lot of our discussions I would never have had as a parent if we weren't doing these micro adventures. And I never actually really thought about that until, when you talked about grief. And I could just imagine there's a lot of things kids don't know how to say. And as a parent, I don't know how to say as well, where being outside and having all this time together, you can kind of ease into these really tough discussions.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was an interesting time for us as a family during sort of the COVID pandemic and having lockdowns over here. And that meant we spent huge amounts of our time just as a family, just walking around and going on kind of hikes and just time together to connect. And yeah, I think it's quite humbling to get that time together to have those more personal conversations. And it takes some pressure off when you're in the outdoors to, really open up.
I hadn't thought about COVID, but actually my next question, this is kind of a lead in. And I'm in a hiking club, and one of the guys I was out hiking with, he was talking about how during COVID, his kids had moved home. They were all at university. They hadn't had time together as a family, and they just, like in Canada, they went out hiking every weekend. And they hadn't had that experience of getting to know their kids as adults. And he said, COVID was terrible, but I never in any way would have had this relationship. I think they had a year. They moved back. They did school remotely. They didn't need to live. I think I don't know where their kids were going to school. But it was creating a relationship that is almost unheard of now as kids move away with his adult kids. And I'm wondering, when I think of family microadventures, I think of younger kids. And, this is how you do it with your young kids while they're still impressionable. But did you look at how to do family adventures and microadventures with older kids, or even looking at how to do it with grandparents? And, it's not just, parents with young kids. It could be almost any definition. And does it change?
I think a micro-adventure is for any age. It really is. And that's both the adults and the children, right? Grandparents, guardians, parents, children of young ages, children, teenagers too. I think the joy of the micro-adventure is that everyone can kind of reap the benefits and have fun in what you do. It's really just establishing what type of micro-adventure is going to suit the group, right? And so, a family does not need to be distinguished as that kind of 2.4 children, a mother and a father. Families, that's not my family, and many other families aren't like that too. I think you design it to suit who you are, right? And I think that's partly how I've written the book is, here's some ideas and thoughts about things you can do, but adapt these and adjust them to suit you and your family and your needs. That's the joy. The outdoors doesn't have an age limit. There's so many ways to enjoy it. Yeah.
And so let's get some examples of micro adventures, because, for some people, again, I think of backpacking, but I'm sure there's like tons of stuff I've never even thought of, because, I'm just, I haven't thought about this as you have. So what are some, for people that are thinking of, I want to do some micro adventures, what are some options they could look at?
Gosh, there's so many, but I think maybe I can share a couple of examples of recent like micro adventures I've done with my boys. My boys are sort of 9 and 12. And I often think some of the best adventures are the spontaneous ones, right? The things that aren't planned. So if I think just a couple of weeks ago, I think it was a Thursday evening, the boys had school, we'd had dinner, it was dark outside, it was pouring with rain, and I felt like we were all sinking into the sofa, just kind of waiting for the day to end. And then somehow that kind of gave me that energy, I guess, to do something. So I got up, encouraged the boys off the sofa, asked them to grab their torches and get their trainers on, and we went out on a night jog in the pouring rain. The boys they didn't stop talking the whole way round. And it's just that moment we had, time together, just us, just to chat and laugh and be at peace. I think it doesn't take planning. It doesn't take lots of organization. You can just go on the spur of the moment. Maybe another one of my kind of favorite micro adventures that I often do with a family, an extended family actually, is a simple scavenger hunt. We did this recently. We were down at the coast and we put together a list of kind of natural items you'd find in your local area, and we kind of split up into 2 teams, and then we went out on search for those items, taking photos. So we had a kind of challenge element to it where we set a timer and a meeting place to all finish up. We just kind of added that kind of competitive edge to the adventure. It was great fun. The kids loved it. The adults enjoyed it. And for me, that beats going to a bowling alley or watching a film in the cinema. So yeah.
I love that idea. I was just thinking, we go walking, there's a big natural park by our house that's, enormous. And just walking and talking is getting a bit boring. And I just thought, take an iPhone and you got to go get photos of a deer and an owl and a beaver and, something else. And the kids would go crazy. They would just be so happy to be running around. And I could just imagine how great that would be. And so with micro adventures, I hadn't thought as much about, kind of the playfulness, but in your view, is that a big aspect of, I kind of think of, let's go hiking for a day. Let's do an overnight backpack. Let's go snowshoeing where we're kind of going out to the mountains. And, for me, it actually is, okay, we got to get all the sandwiches made. We've got to make sure they all have all their gear. We've got a, 90-minute drive each way. The way you describe it, it's just a way more, it's a Sunday afternoon. Let's go do something fun and just think of, just kind of be spontaneous.
Yeah. Yeah. You can do it both ways, and they, there's huge value in the planned, proper kind of challenging adventures, and then there's fun and excitement to be had, and kind of curiosity that you can grow in just those unplanned adventures. So I think either works. I certainly find for my kids to kind of motivate them and energize them. They're like your usual kids. They'll sit there on their tech and they don't want to go anywhere. When I'm pounding and pounding, trying to get them going. But if I can add that kind of, that sounds a bit fun, that sounds a bit exciting, that's when they get the trainers on and then they get going. So that's kind of what works for our family.
Are there any other types of micro-adventures? Again, you're just kind of, my brain is just firing here with like trying to switch it up from, I also feel like now hearing this, I'm in a bit of a rut. Are there other kind of great spontaneous micro-adventures that are easy to do that don't require my wife to wake up early and do a bunch of work that has had great success?
I don't know whether this one is, but it's one I love doing, and it's just using the local area. So where I live in the south of the UK, we've got the river really close by. And what I love doing with the boys is I've got a paddle board, and we just throw that in the boot and we head down to the river. And I figured out a way to have myself, my two boys, and my dog on the paddle board. At first it was a bit challenging, but we got the hang of it. That one is a bit sporadic and easy for us, right? We've got the kit, and so we just head up to the river. It costs no money, and we're out. We're enjoying the sunshine. We're seeing what's going on. I think that one really gets us kind of going, and it works. At a beach, at a lake, at a river, different places, right? So I think, again, think about the tools and equipment, what you have as a family. Maybe that's bikes, maybe that's scooters. What can you use, and just kind of get out there. So yeah, that's definitely one of our family favorites.
And as we were talking, I was thinking as well, my parents, like a lot of my friends' parents, are aging. They're losing mobility. They're losing stamina. Can you, have you thought about applying this to, doing things with elderly parents? We do a lot of dinners at their house or our house, but it's, for some reason, it's very, very different. We used to go hiking and go to backcountry lodges. It's really different. And as you were talking, I was thinking, is there a way to apply this, or have you thought about how to apply this to elderly people who are probably similar to young children in terms of their ability to recreate?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think, yes, if I think of some of the adventures I've put into the book, some of them they don't require that much kind of physical effort. In fact, some you can even bring into the home, right? So an example is one actually I did again quite recently with the boys, where we made a kind of fairy house. So we went into the garden and we collected some natural items, and I've got one of those glue guns, and it wasn't the nicest, sunniest of days, so we brought it inside, and 2 hours, and even my 12-year-old was absolutely fascinated and asking me where to stick this and what to do. And I think, if you have got those kind of grandparents that are aging and the more physical stuff would be more challenging, you can absolutely bring those types of kind of adventures to life indoors or in the garden closer to home. So yeah, it doesn't always require hiking boots in a mountain.
I throughout this entire chat, Claire, I've just thought there's just so much value in these ideas of how to bring people together. And it's so hard to do it for longer periods, but this is a way just to build relationships with loved ones just on a on a shorter, more manageable term. And I almost look at your book as an investment in an improved family life. We spend so much money on all these, we send our kids to piano classes and language classes and, mini universities and all these things. And here for $25, you can do all these fun things with your kids and build a relationship. It seems so powerful. It must be really rewarding having done all this and then written the book.
I think really for me, and again, it's something I mentioned in the book, it's that notepad I had at the side of my bed with lots of ideas jotted down, and it just having a tidy up and putting it out there. So I'm just glad to be able to share it, and hopefully it might ignite passion and inspire others to go, you know what, we don't need to go down the bowling alley. Let's just go outside our front door.
And also in today's times, everything is going up in price. I know we tried to go bowling and it was, I think it was like $90 for an hour, which is like, 50 pounds to go bowling. And I was just thinking, this is what's going on. And for most micro adventures, all you need is time and an idea. There's almost no cost usually. Absolutely. Yeah. So Claire, if people want to find your book or they want to find you, how can they find you?
So the book is available on Amazon. So there is a paper copy or an ebook, and that should be available across almost all countries. So that's the place to go. If you'd like to grab a copy of the book.
Excellent. I'll put a link in the show notes. And I want to say thanks for coming on and sharing this. You've definitely inspired me. I have some ideas. We're recording this just before Christmas, so I have some fun ideas to maybe replace going to the mountains and just going someplace a little bit closer. And that treasure hunt idea is just burning a hole in my brain right now. So thanks for sharing all your expertise.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been brilliant.
Excellent. And thanks everyone for listening to this episode of the 10 Adventures podcast. We'll be back next week to explore the world and hear about more epic adventures. Listen to other episodes of the 10 Adventures podcast on Amazon Music at amazon.com/10adventures.